demographic survey, some of the highlights that we picked that we are going to be looking at. Effects of COVID virus on the economy. There was a major disruption in service delivery in health, leaving people who rely on government-free health care very vulnerable. There were also a number of shortfalls in domestic revenues and the collections greatly affected. We also had major growth areas in public expenditure going higher because of a number of people becoming redundant and staying home, not producing. Of course, on the economy, especially jobs, we had closing of schools, rendering close to 80 teachers jobless, and we have a number of teachers in the room who are going to be looking at this. We also had a significantly high percentage of manufacturing businesses laying off employees, with 41% of them rather, reducing employees by more than one half. That's what the survey says. And then we also had close to 71% of surveyed businesses in agriculture reporting severe decline in demand, compared to 47% in manufacturing and 49% in services. We had about 80% of business in the agricultural sector reducing their workforce by more than a quarter, and a severe decline in agricultural demand there. And the survey, of course, also reveals that the workforce in Ugandan agricultural businesses underwent major restructuring. And to discuss all these issues, we have the panel is already seated here, and you can see them already taken their seat. But let's start with the preamble that will usher us into the discussion.
Schools have been under lockdown for 1 year and 8 months, but on 1st November 2021, post-secondary institutions officially opened. Some institutions refused students to access school premises without presenting COVID-19 vaccination cards.
We may not tie you and vaccinate you forcefully, but we can stop you from being a danger to those who have accepted to get vaccinated.
We are now just waiting for the program from the Ministry of Health as the first vaccination of the students is concerned.
If the numbers are high, then the Ministry of Health shall work with these universities to establish vaccination centers.
Government's target by December 2021 was to vaccinate 4.8 million people.
Frontline and vulnerable categories that will act as the firebreak.
The number has risen to 12 million people, where 23 million doses will be available by that time. This will lead to fully open the economy in January 2022.
Even if some people absent themselves from the vaccination.
To date, 3,189,173 doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered to the population. This is UBC Behind the Headlines.
Welcome back from that clip, and that clip will usher us into the discussion. I want to welcome the lady and gentlemen, starting with the Councillor Sarah Birete. She is the ED of the Center for Constitutional Governance. We have the Honorable Ojara Mapenduzi, MP for Gulu City, and we have the Honorable and my classmate, Honorable Joseph Seungu Gonzaga. He is MP for Kalungu West. We have Dr. Fred Muhumuza, who is an economist, also a teacher. He teaches economics at Makerere University School of Economics. And finally, extreme left, we have the Honorable Dr. Chris Baromunsi, Minister in charge of ICT. He is a medical doctor, So very relevant for our discussion on opening the economy coming out of COVID. And gentlemen and lady, you're all most welcome this evening. And thank you for joining the show. Honorable Bariamunsi, I need to start with you. As government, you announced last week, just after this show, on Thursday actually, the President addressed the nation. And you decided to announce that no, the economy, we shall not reopen in November as had been planned, but we will now open in January, and also looking at how the vaccination will go. Are you prepared to keep that and fulfill that promise? What are those preparatory things that you have put in place?
Yes, thank you very much, Charles, and good evening, fellow panelists and viewers. First of all, it's not true that the government had said it would fully open in November. What the President had earlier on said was that the universities and other tertiary institutions would open in November, which is being implemented, and then the rest of the educational institutions, i.e. secondary schools, primary schools, would open January 2022.
Yeah.
That was the early announcement.
That's true.
And this time around, he added that the economy shall fully reopen in January 2022, meaning that the areas which are still locked, like secondary schools and the primary schools, bars, entertainment places, maybe limitation of the numbers in the faith institutions and prayer places, maybe would be fully reopened early next year. You recall, Charles and viewers, that we have tagged the opening to vaccination, because since the beginning of COVID-19, we've largely been using the best case SOPs, particularly physical distancing, washing hands with water and soap, and using an alcohol-based sanitizer, wearing masks while in public correctly and consistently, and that has helped. But now we know vaccines are available, and increasingly we are getting more doses as a country, and now the science of vaccines is fairly well understood. We know that vaccines help in particularly making you not fall sick. Even when you can get infected, you won't get severe disease. You are not likely to be hospitalized. You are not likely to die. And therefore, vaccines are of public health importance. And that's why we are insisting Ugandans should embrace vaccination as we open the economy, as we return to the normal situation. Now, the numbers that we have, we are targeting to vaccinate up to 22 million Ugandans. That is the proportion which is 18 years and above. But even if we reach a target of about 80% of that, which translates to around 17 million people, we will be good to go.
So is the opening dependent on that number achieved, or as...
Yes, no, the President said we shall open whether people are vaccinated or not, but we shall continue to guide him as scientists that we need to attain what we call herd immunity. And this means that you need to have up to 60 to 80% of the population having developed immunity, either through immunization or even through infection. And we usually settle for a figure of 80%. As I'm saying, our target is 22 million Ugandans, but even if we reach around 17 million, which is 80% of that, herd immunity means you have a critical mass of the population which is protected, and that 80% can even protect the 20%, even if you haven't reached 100%. So yes, he said we shall open whether people are vaccinated or not, but we are going to vigorously promote vaccination so that as many Ugandans as possible get vaccinated, so that when we open, we are safe as a country in terms of protecting ourselves against COVID-19.
Thank you. Before I bring in your colleagues, I just want to find out, you have said that the president has said, and we got him right, that with or without the vaccination, but that as scientists, you wish that you will continue to advise him on this herd immunity to be achieved. Does that mean it's still conditional? And is that condition pressure from politics, from the public, or is it just based on proper rational
advice? My understanding of his statement was that because we had been discussing issues of
the closure,
of herd immunity with him,
yeah.
And it means you don't have to attain 100%,
yeah,
for you to have the community protected. So I think he meant that even if we have not vaccinated 100% of Ugandans, we shall still open. Because his statement should not be misinterpreted to mean we should relax on vaccination in the case the president is going to open. No, we still need to vigorously promote vaccination and vaccinate as many Ugandans as possible. More doses of vaccines are coming in. We are putting in money to buy more doses. So what he meant was that even if by January we have not vaccinated 100%, we shall still open.
Okay.
And that is scientifically correct to say, to achieve herd immunity, you don't have to vaccinate 100%. Even if you vaccinate a critical proportion, that is good enough to protect the whole population.
Thank you very much.
So the statement should not discourage Ugandans from embracing and accepting to be vaccinated.
Thank you very much.
We remain committed to see that in January we see full opening of the economy.
Okay. Opening of the economy. Dr. Muhumuza, from your reading, how much has the economy been battered so far? And given where we are at, do you see us ready to reopen fully by January? What are the things we need to do right?
Well, I think quite a number of things, and you gave some interesting statistics there. And I think even as Honorable Bariomus has emphasized the vaccination side, there is also the reality that will be on the ground. How many people will be getting infected? If you want to open up and a wave comes, you respond to that as well. So there are those two things that are going to be monitored. But at least for now, because economies hate uncertainty, at least now we have some certainty that you can prevent that wave if you swing up your vaccination numbers. So the science is now a little bit more clearer. Even from the government side, where you want to put your money, as Ugandans say, put your money where you can see. We now all know where the money should be going. Put money into vaccinations. And I think these are now lessons we need to learn, that prevention has always been better than cure. But for some reason, our Ministry of Health pursues curative approaches. So now here we are now all focusing, don't put beds and oxygen. Have them somewhere, but please, the route is through vaccination. Now that's a good signal for an economy you are going to open. Because everybody now will be seeing that if those numbers of vaccinated individuals increase, I can pull out my money and invest with no fear that I may get locked down again in March or in February. That's one signal to investors. That's one signal to the banks. Because even the banks we are hearing who are sitting on money, it was that uncertainty. You don't want to lend to a business which needs to pick up and operate for 9 months to be able to pick a level of paying you back as a bank. Because you don't know the future. But now with that future becoming a little bit uncertain, the banks will come out and begin to lend to these individuals who are getting the opening. Businesses can also begin to forecast. So the opening is going to be a little bit more clearer than the previous lifting of the lockdowns, which is a good thing. So you're not just talking about schools will come back, the bars will come back. Those are just small sectors that depend on others, which others need a longer term signal in order to do the investment. So that's going to be one positive thing come to January compared to the previous lockdown, that people will be able to foresee continuity throughout 2021, 2022, and 2023. And that will be a very good thing for us to have. The economy has been battered, as you've said. But when I looked at the numbers, because at least now we have some what we call quarterly GDP every 3 months. And the available figures are for the last quarter of last financial year. So you're talking about April, May, and June. Now, you do not see many sectors still posting negative growth in that April, May, and June period. Remember, that was the period just before the second lockdown. Now, that seems to be giving us a signal that when the economy opens, this economy can recover quickly in a number of sectors. So you look at agriculture. Agriculture, of course, it has its seasonal effect. January will find us after the harvest. So there will be selling of food crops, possibly plenty, so the food prices will be down. Schools will come back and begin to buy. So that sector, you see it picking up. Transport will pick up. Who knows, a few other sectors will pick up. But when I looked through that last quarter, majority of the sectors actually grew, including manufacturing, posting very good growth. The problem was still in education, but again, remember that time, a number of schools had opened up. So education itself had responded positively in growth. So there is hope that this opening will at least prevent the downward spiral for the economy or the trough where it has begun, and it might begin to see the recovery. And as I've said, if the long-term signal is clear, the economy will begin to post some growth and we can hit some 4%.
Before I leave you, you mentioned something that now we can put money in the right places. Where are those what are some of those right places where money should be put apart from vaccination?
Now, that's the government money should go into vaccination. But remember, the government in the economy like Uganda is a major driver. Now, we still have this kind, and it's a conversation we really want to have with government. Government still wants to put money in transmission lines, money into standard gauge railway. Now, when you are recovering from a hospital,
you don't go into those major...
You don't want to get into those kinds of things.
Are you advising them to do that?
Now, I wouldn't advise us to go back into the infrastructure. We can resume on that in 2022, 2023. But surely for the remaining part of this financial year, you need to put money in areas that give you faster growth. So it's time to look at areas of agriculture. It's time to look at into areas of quick areas that will give us the money, revamping the school systems. And we're going to have a hardship because in the first lockdown, we learned some lessons when it was ended. That is one thing to open the economy, it's another thing to open for the economy. Now, most people felt the moment the president says you can come to town, arcades will become vibrant. That is opening for the economy, but you haven't opened up the economy itself, because the economy itself is still going to be locked up in people who have had no incomes for a long time. So there are certain sectors that even when you are opened, the bar is open, people may not necessarily come back. The schools are going to open. What is the status of the parents who are supposed to send these children back? That is going to be the reality come January. So you want to help those to come back quickly. So if I had money as government, I would come to some of these private schools and say, you guys, I know you took some loans. We are going to restructure them. We'll put in some money, but some money we're putting in, we want you to pass it on as a subsidy to the parents so that they can bring back those children. So you want to resuscitate those critical sectors. Then we can go back to our standard gauge railway later on in the years to come. Because for now, you must make sure these schools are open and the children are back. And once the children are back, then scholastic materials will be bought, uniforms will be bought, food will be bought, and that will resuscitate your system as we move along. So we need to be very, very calculative on those sectors that we need to put our money in.
Good. Honorable Seungu, rightly mentioned, education, schools, it is one of those that, I mean, all sectors were beaten, but these were really hammered. And like in the survey that I showed, 80%, possibly about less or more, have already fallen unemployed. and many perhaps will not go back to school. Some of the schools, I'm told, are on sale. Some are now being used as restaurants in some places. How bad is the situation? What should be done to reopen?
First of all, I want to respond to the minister. And of course, with my lecturer and the economist, I don't expect much of what he's saying. First of all, those viewing us, I'm not among those particular people who believe that there will be an opening in January. And even if they open, I will not thank the president, but I will thank God. What is in place now that is stopping us from opening what is being put in place now in preparation of opening for January? There is nothing. There is nothing. When you are going to, for example, universities have been open. He's here, let him tell us, the professor, whether there's anything government has put in place before they opened up their higher institutions of learning. There's virtually nothing. We should always refresh on what has been said by the president. And when we are here, when we are here, you see, we have a challenge. The minister is trying to reactivate a dormant volcano. And he has to do that. That's his job. And that's very key. However, we must remember what the president has been saying all along. Remember, the president said he wants 4 million people vaccinated. But before that, he said 4.5, and he's giving very good evidence before these cameras. So 4.8 should be vaccinated to open up. Now, second, they said, no, I need 20 million. Then, as we stated that, he said, whether I like it or not, in January, I will open up. A country, if it's about opening up, let us look at our neighboring countries. Was there anything put in place before opening up? I watched Kenyatta in Kenya. He spent 10 minutes saying he's the president of Kenya, he's opening up the country. We have a president here who takes an hour explaining why he has to open up. Seated in the chair, the other one is standing. Those are differences. Now, what is in Kenya?
What are those differences? Just sitting and
the
standing?
guest chairs are not tax place. All those are guest chairs. And you know what I mean. So the other one is taking 10 minutes to open up. The other one is taking an hour to explain why it's going to open up.
Form from
However, as I come to my teachers, let us take interest in looking at what.
Actually, all of you are teachers. All that side, I'm sure, are teachers. Even you.
And the doctor.
Then the 4 of you are all teachers.
Charles, what is in Kenya? The issue of vaccines. The minister is here. He will tell us. Let us give us the statistics of how much government has procured and how much has been given to us by donors. Yet we release the money. However, in Kenya, this is what is happening. When Kenyatta opened up, they had a challenge, which is also still a challenge in Uganda. They are saying that people have refused to go for vaccination, but vaccines are there. Somehow, somewhere, they might be right, but if you go deep and research, you take interest in our rural areas, in some areas, vaccines are not there. But in Kenya, this is what the people are doing. Business people are already jubilating. They have started giving out. If he has a restaurant, he says, you bring vaccines near my restaurant, I will give whoever comes for vaccination free lunch. They are making adverts in that form. And people are rushing very fast. No, Johnny's restaurant is giving free food and their vaccines. They go and vaccinate. And business is running. Most of the people in Africa, even here in Uganda, we are going to peak time for our businesses because we are coming for Christmas. You see, for us, we grew knowing that our parents had to buy us new clothes, Easter and Christmas. But of course, with their regime, it is the reverse these days because of the poverty that is hitting. So those are preparations in interest of getting people who have refused to go for vaccination. Secondly, we need to get analysis of what is taking place in Uganda. Whenever the president talks, he doesn't tell us the performance of vaccination and the levels of sickness. We are not getting them. But we hear about the Bachwezi, how we went to the bush, we fought in this what and all that. That's what he says in most cases. And people continue listening. But we need to know the statistics. Which areas are
But
hit?
he showed the statistics.
Say, okay, you have the screen, but the screens are here, and
I
you
give
always
information.
record him.
The president last time said the positivity rate has fallen from 21% at the climax of the second wave to 1% today. Maybe you didn't understand what it means.
So if he says that,
yes,
and at the end of the speech he says, with or without vaccination, I will open up the country. Meaning, he's right to open it as seated where he was talking from, that very time. He was right to open it. Because what we are saying, and today was, lucky enough I've been with the minister during parliament. This is what I told him. Honorable Minister, let us continue educating the masses. There's nothing more we'll do. I am a professional teacher. I am a teacher. I love teaching. I studied the law. I am a lawyer, you know it. But I love teaching. I one time met KCCA in Kampala, in that parliament. They have the biggest number of children. They did examinations here. And I asked PLE, they once taught, I asked them, Nakasero, Buganda Road, Bati Valley, to tell us whether they had any students who got problems during that time when they were studying. The answer was in negative. True, COVID is there, but are we making it, are we politicizing it? Are you buying out of time, are you buying time, Honourable Minister, as politicians to keep us fearing, not moving? But I can assure you people are drinking, bars are working. Basically, those who have strong power and those who have backing at home, that we are within the system, they are working. Actually, the sales of beer are high, Mr. Economist. If you look at the traders taking beer to Mbarara, Kampala, Jinja, Karungu, even Rwanda, they are moving very fast and people are buying daily. Yeah, so, I think
but buying beer was not banned. It was not banned. Buying beer was not banned.
It was not banned, meaning that business is going on. So people are working.
So there is nothing new to open.
There's nothing new to open. Even at the road books, I've just passed them. They say, if you have anything, give us and you go. I said, no. Me, I'm a member of parliament, but since you are my friends, actually, niwapatie kintu kidogo, tutaonana siku ingine. So that's what I'm telling them. So, and they are tired. They are tired. So, Mr. so. Actually,
that we shall meet another day.
What I want to say. Dr. Chris Malumus knows this as a doctor. You see, lockdown world over was caused because there are stages of this pandemic. There was stage 1, there's stage 2. Stage 1 is where we had the contacts. You know, someone was with Honorable Mapenduzi, was with Chris. They were together on the plane. They came. In the case when Mapenduzi gets the vaccine that got the COVID, yes, someone might have got the same because they are together. At that time, they were tracing contacts. That's what we did. They went to Kalangala looking for all those people and they had to lock them up. Then we went to phase 2. Again, there were some contacts. But when we went to stage 4, we are all mixed up. You can never look for what's caused the COVID to the other. The only issue is how to treat and train people and vaccination.
Okay. Bring it, before I bring in
education.
Now, education, schools.
Now, with education, of course,
do you think that they are ready to reopen? Because at least for them,
first of all,
for them they were closed.
The regime running this government this country doesn't know education. They don't know education. They are gambling with it. They will continue gambling. But God saves our people and our children end up succeeding. Now, with education, let me tell you, education, I know. You cannot run it the way these people are doing things. For example, you are saying teachers have run away from schools. Yes, they had to run because there was a lockdown. You have taken 2 years, and it is known world over that it is Uganda, throughout the whole world, we take lead in keeping children out of school for the longest period. When you are preparing children to go back to school, you are giving a UPE child 10,000 shillings. 10 per year. 10,000. Now, even the 10,000 capitation grant, we release it in the budget. But as we talk now, there is no UPE school since we went for lockdown that has ever received any money on their account. Actually, their accounts have been closed because they are dormant accounts by now. Now, if a school, let me talk about Shimoni where I was teaching here, your neighborhood.
This hotel.
Yeah, now at Kololo. If it had 500 children or 300 children, this government was giving it around 2 million per term. This would mean that by now, after 2 years, those are 6 terms. I think that those are 6 terms because the year has 3 terms. We'd expect that school to be having around maybe 6 times times the 2 million, that is 12 million on their account. So this government would be advising head teachers, directing them, please use that money to prepare children to return by putting into place what you call the step and wash machines for COVID, prepare toilets and everything. But what is happening now, there's virtually nothing in the schools. And head teachers will be pumped, directed, this is intimidating. Then the Honorable Minister of Information at Media Center will give his directives. Then you will find the Inspector of Police giving his directive. Minister of Education, all that confusion from that center will come onto head teachers, directing them how schools should begin without money. And they will say, no, we have directed. We have directed. That's why universities are there. They have begun, but everybody is crying. Students are not there because nothing is put in place to prepare.
So you are saying schools are not ready to reopen?
They're not ready. At this stage, Charles, this government would be preparing teachers for workshops, putting them back into mood, looking out for all those impregnated girls. Because those girls who have been impregnated, like it or not, they must go back to school. It is not their fault. It's because of the pandemic and other factors that came in during that period.
Thanks.
So generally, he will explain to you, what have they put in place? Are they looking for those teachers?
That's an important question. Honorable Minister, that's a very important question for you to think about responding to. Honorable Mapenduzi, you reminded me you are also a teacher, but for me, the thing I like about you, being a district leader, you are very close to some of these issues as they happen. But even now closer perhaps, because being an MP, you are still in contact with them. Do you think that the schools, the economy generally speaking, the social life is ready for formal reopening come January? Or if not, what should be done now by government to do that, to ensure that the reopening is well done, smoothly done?
Well, my brother Charles, hearing the three great men speak and their views is quite interesting. But I'll say different people give different opinions based on the angle they look at the situation.
Like the story of the elephant.
Exactly. And for me, I'll definitely give my views based on my own experiences, just as you put it, as a district leader. But it's also important to say that last year, around September, I tested positive during the first wave. And so I went to the treatment center, and I had neighbors who were on oxygen, battling for their lives. I have seen people die. This year, during the second wave, I lost my paternal uncle. He succumbed to COVID. And so when you talk about this whole thing, it's about life and death. But also when you talk about reopening the economy, it's about, it's dealing with poverty and prosperity. So you have life and death on the one end, and also you're looking at how to deal with, how to manage that process so we get out of, it's complex. But what I'll say is that, just as the Honorable Minister put it, he tried to explain the different processes and all that. And the President has talked repeatedly about vaccination, emphasizing the need to have more Ugandans get vaccinated. But I'll say, the country should have done, there are things that we could have done better. Fortunately, I was part of the task force put by Parliament, the COVID task force. And we move around the country. And today, much as we talk about having, encouraging people to get vaccinated, this is something that should have started much earlier. We gave, we expressed concern why, focus was being put on other areas instead of putting resources to have vaccine and all that. That time, one of our concerns was that from the time COVID and the lockdown started to almost this year around July, coming to August, the country had spent close to 4 trillion. In as far as
about 4.8.
Exactly. In as far as COVID interventions, are concerned, 4 trillion. And our question was, yes, if you want 21 million Ugandans to get vaccinated, how much money do you need? And the Minister of Health said, we need about 2.8 trillion. And we said, if we needed 2.8 trillion to have everyone vaccinated, and we know that what comes out of the vaccination is much better than the struggle to, deal with the curative aspect and all that. We said, if this is, the solution, then we should have put our focus and spent the resources we needed to procure vaccine. So it looks like the 4 trillion, the 4-point-something trillion, went on interventions that probably we knew would not do much, and today we think vaccination is the key. So I think, Honorable Minister, sometimes, just as you said, you provide advice to the President and all that. I think sometimes the advice that you and your colleagues give to the President keep the country running around and around and around. And so when Honorable Seungu makes such statements, it's out of frustration, but also out of what I would say, the failure to look at our level of responses, but how we strategically identify what can provide a much quicker result. So I think it's important that when we advise the President and when we look at how to provide solutions, we need to very, very strategically and think deep. Because sometimes people will, Ugandans will begin to believe that, 4-point-something trillion got spent, and now we think vaccination is the key. So what have we been doing? And that makes people begin to think that probably sometimes some people want to make money out of every situation. So that is one side. And it's important that government spends the resources effectively on the things that can produce better results. And I think that should be the direction. Now, coming to the position that the President gave recently, I think it's important, much as sometimes we want to bring politics in every environment. I think it's important to recognize that Uganda tried. And for me, being someone who worked with the local government, being in the task force, and then moving with the members of parliament throughout the country, I think it's important to recognize, to acknowledge that the Minister of Health, the President and his team tried, looking at how Uganda has been managed in other countries, because we are not going to say, look, it's about saving lives. So when you hear our story, and then you hear the stories coming from other countries, I think it's important to recognize that the President and the team tried. They did a fairly good job that we have to appreciate. But just as my honorable colleague put it, I think there is need for the Honorable Minister and the team to do a lot more in preparing the country as we move towards reopening the economy and making sure a lot of the activities get back to, looking at the education sector. Yesterday I had an interaction with one senior officer of the Ministry of Education, and we had a lot of discussion. And one of the things I asked and said, look, So as you are preparing to open the schools in January, what are you trying to do? I do not want to agree with Honorable Seungo when he says nothing is being done. The officer told me, and actually I was able to find out today, how the Ministry of Education is trying to provide support to schools and making sure. But what they are doing is not enough.
But can I ask you a question? You met him. Have you taken interest in your district, your constituency, to find whether what he's saying is true?
You
Tell
see,
us that on Amapenduzi.
Well,
because I know Guru very well where you come from.
You see,
is there anything being done in the Guru municipality? That is it West or East? I don't know, because now there are two constituencies.
Well, I will very honestly tell you that the statements I make, I don't make statements anyhow. And I pay a lot of attention to details.
So you are saying...
So let me finish. Don't interrupt.
No, you said to the public that in the Guru municipality where you are representing...
But it's public. What I'm saying is public.
They are doing something for your schools before they resume, as of now, according to the statement you are saying.
You see, listening is very important.
What do you want? What do you expect to be done that is not being done? You should also be clear.
Actually, you can also say that.
But you see, I wish you gave me time to finish, because you see, I don't like your impressions.
No. I am not here as someone who is dumb.
Well, I'm not saying you are dumb, but so, I'm also.
And you came to me, so I'm answering you.
Yeah, that's.
You see, you have made a very funny statement here. Nobody is saying that the government has not done anything, but you can wash clothes very well and you end up putting them into the mud to dry them.
Well,
so we are in mud. You just get that.
Can you allow me? Can you allow me finish? Thank you. You see, I was getting back to the statement you made.
And the question.
Yes, and I'll answer your question. I don't fear questions. You said nothing is being done to prepare the schools, and I'm telling you, the interactions I had yesterday, and to be specific, I had a lot of discussion with the permanent secretary. And because I am concerned about the schools in my district, I am concerned about the learners when they get back to school in January. They should have the environment required for them to receive, the knowledge they need. And so it is my concern.
So but you are not answering the question.
And so my question to the PS, let me be specific, was that, what are you trying to do? I went to my area, found a number of schools have gone bushy. There are structures that have collapsed. There are a number of things that have to be done. And I said, what are you trying to do? Because these schools need money. And so she gave me figures. She gave me details of what they have so far been able to do. And I told her, I said, look, you have not yet done enough. For example, how many schools are, like from the private sector? There are many schools that are not going to open. Why? Because some of the...
Banks have closed in
exactly,
on them.
Banks have closed
Loans.
them. All right? And so my question to her was, are you not going to be overwhelmed when the schools begin? There are children who will have nowhere to go simply because their schools are not going to be reopened. These are privately owned schools. They have been closed for 2 years or so. The directors of the schools do not have any money. And I told the PAs about a friend of mine. Last weekend, we went with him to my farm, and he said, I have decided to change my school into the classrooms are going to be turned into a piggery project. And I said, now look at this. So there are things that the ministry, there are things that...
a contradiction now.
No, there are things that the ministry has to do. All right? So what they have done so far is not adequate. That can prepare the schools to reopen, and I think government needs to do much more. But also the other thing.
I need to bring in Councillor Birete, and then I come back to all of us now to feel free and jump in. There's
some information I want to give him. That area is very key, and both of us are teachers, if I'm allowed. You see, I want to help
Which area? You mean
education?
Education.
We cannot tell you, we cannot give misleading information in front of the UBC cameras. And now, when you know Chris Bayumus is talking, that's why sometimes I just sometimes remove the accelerator, because he has something to do with the collective responsibility. But we members of parliament, we must tell people the truth. Charles, today I'm a member of the Committee of Education. We are meeting private, BTVET institutions, private. They are crying, looking for money from government because they cannot start. They don't have money. Institutions teaching in medics and health workers, these nurses and what have you, also have problems. Now, what I want to tell you, Nama Penduzi, we are not here for collective responsibility. Let us tell the public what is happening. Government is not ready. There is nothing they have done for schools. If you are going to open schools in January, Charles, by now, after 2 years, government must be working on the schools. I am saying there is no money on the accounts of schools. Yet they were receiving capitation grant. But this money was released long ago for the last 2 years. It's not on the accounts. So you cannot see.
Are you saying they spent it?
There's not, it's nowhere. It's nowhere. Actually,
you're saying it was released.
The money was.
Just wait. Just wait. Honorable Sewungu, just wait. I just need us to get something clear for the sake of the public and all of us. You're saying it was released about 2 years ago, but you're saying they don't have the money on their accounts.
Very good.
Where the money is used up by the schools, or it did not reach them?
What happened is this. Once the money was sent to districts, still they wrote the districts that don't release this money. It was kept on the government, on district accounts. That's what is there. And he knows it because he has been a SOP chairman. And up to now, all head teachers are demanding for this money. Some of them, those who are winning.
So where is it? Where is that money?
So the money is with the districts?
At the districts, and they cannot utilize it.
Is that so?
Let me conclude. Because
so what's your complaint?
What we are saying is, and I said it, by this time, head teachers should be preparing for the reopening by preparing schools. When you talk about a school being bushy, chairs being eaten by anthills, you cannot prepare those classes, you cannot prepare them within 1 month. You need time for that.
Okay.
Toilets are not functioning.
Okay. Can I bring in Sarah?
No, before that, just one thing. You see, I don't see much contradiction, but I think the Honorable Siungu has failed to pick my message. The difference between what I'm saying and what he's saying is that for me, it's not about saying government is not doing anything. I went further to find out. And that's why I'm saying I had a long discussion with the peers. And for me, it's about being solution-oriented. Yes, I have schools in my area. This is the situation. What are you trying to do? And she was able to explain, but later on provide proof. And today I was able to cross-check, including calling my town clerk to say, give me the status of this school. Tell me what is going on here. And that's why I'm emphasizing that, yes, so there is something being done, but I think government needs to...
It is not adequate.
Not adequate.
Good, thank you. Honorable, Council, not yet Honorable, Council Sarah, you have had these exchanges, and you know, of course, your ears are on the ground yourself. Do you think that the January deadline to reopen is something that will be achieved? And do you think that the 4.8 million that is supposed to be one of those to direct us, to lead us to reopening will be achieved? What should be done between now and that time, from especially an education perspective?
Well, the January deadline, it is not sustainable to keep sectors under lockdown beyond that period. We have had sectors that have been locked for 2 years, close to 2 years, because 18 months of the pandemic. So you have the entertainment industry, you have the education sector. I think those have been under complete lockdown. The others have some ease measures to operate, though not fully, but those sectors have been under complete lockdown. And we have not seen any meaningful interventions to help people that earn a living from these sectors. If you look at entertainment industry, just an example of holding a concert, a music concert. A simple event employs about 200 people. The people who are setting up the stage, the people who are drumming, the dancers, the backstage, So all these people have not been able to earn any income. since COVID was announced in March 2020. Nobody's bothered to know how they live. There were attempts during total lockdown to send some money, but Parliament discovered that most of that money never reached even to most of the vulnerable. So we have these people. So do you lock them for 2-3 years when you're doing nothing to them? We know that we have increasing insecurity, increasing petty thieves in our offices, in our homes, everywhere. And we have pushed a particular section of Ugandans to choose as to how they should die, either by COVID or by hunger, starvation, and maybe being killed as they are desperate stealing or whatever they are doing. So that section of population should be taken into consideration because the government must plan for everybody. So I would be interested to know what is the plan for these people who have been under total lockdown for 2 years. What have we done about them as their leaders? Away from that, IMF has predicted 6.1% shortfall in the global economy, as well as 11% contraction in world trade earnings. I think for Uganda, the prediction is about 2.2% growth, 2.2 to 3.2 as we ease lockdown. But as Honorable Seungu said, what sectors are locked? I think if anybody still wants to say bars are closed in Uganda, the terror attack exposed that myth or that lie, because it was an attack after 9 p.m. on a bar that was fully operational. That is evidence before everybody's eyes, and I hope when the president is announcing again, he will not say bars are closed. The only difference that is there is that bars of the rich are open and bars of the poor and marginalized are closed. So we have put in place measures that have even magnified and expanded our income inequalities. And these measures are not effective, maybe, but we have a member of the scientific committee. And I'm sure everybody has been seeing bars open on Urugogo. You know, we all get videos of people in bars. Bars of the rich and well-to-do have been operational. So what sectors are under lockdown? It's mainly the poor.
And actually, some of them are guarded by security personnel.
Yes. We saw, even, you know, when...
Did you see the teenagers?
Yes.
Who were jumping
you know,
at a place called Cayenne?
I saw that, unfortunately. I was worried if any of them fell down. You know, these are between 6, I think they are mostly 15, 16-year-olds. And there was even a music concert in Guru when Genosare was still camped there. The musicians he was hosting. Yes. So we have had selective operation of people that are politically connected and privileged, and then lockdown of the poor. And it does not make sense at all to keep any sector under lockdown, because you are locking the poor, the marginalized, the less privileged, while the others are free to operate. So, but away from that, what is the status of our economy? If you look at the global statistics that have been done and measures to help to, you know, create recovery of the economy, there are 3 aspects that should be addressed. One is the flow of revenue and especially cash flow, either to create purchasing power within the citizens. So you look at balancing demand and supply. But our interventions largely here has been about cushioning the supply side without looking at the demand and the purchasing power of the citizens. The other aspect, and I think government, this is if we are preparing to open, even if it is a lie and the privileged are open and working, we should have measures. Because if you say you are going to open, what are you going to open? And what are you doing about it? I think even that message should come out. What is closed? What are you planning to open, and how are you opening it? The other second measure countries have put in place is to minimize expenditure and only spend money on necessary and important areas. But we still have wastage. Wastage in our budgets, wastage in terms of size of government amidst a pandemic, wastage in terms of now districts and cities we are struggling to fund, created in a pandemic. So you see that the planning and priorities of government are really not in harmony with the reality on the ground. And the other area that we should be focusing on is reducing public debt. We are, I think, now categorized as highly indebted. We are due for a third. We are about to start begging for the third debt cancellation under President Museveni, because we have benefited from at least two, there could be more, but I'm aware of 2 debt cancellations that this regime has benefited from. And because of our excessive borrowing and skyrocketing public debt, we are about to begin begging everybody for the third cancellation of debt. But what are we spending on? What are our priorities?
Actually, to give you information, I remember, I think it was 87, 97. Is it HIPIC, something like that? Closed, cancelled all our debts and went back to 0.
Yes.
That's the information.
So we have the high debt. I think the parliament is debating a supplementary budget of about 3.8 trillion.
After passing.
But what are the priorities? And are we spending on necessary people in light of the economic constraints caused by a pandemic? Or we are just spending money for... In this past budget, there was money, a lot of money approved to buy vehicles. I mean, this is the pandemic.
Can I give you some good information on the budget? Today we had, and we have a big problem in this country. They are asking for supplementary to prepare study materials for primary children worth 54 billion. However, the term they are beginning in January. Even if you have to print them now, you cannot deliver them within 1 month. And they are not commensurate what children need at school at that time.
Okay.
So you can imagine that situation.
Yeah. So, and then when it comes to schools, I think largely there is no seriousness in preparing schools to reopen. I am a parent, I think at younger levels of primary and secondary levels. I know we get Zoom parents meetings almost every month. The schools are in distress. For private schools, it is worse. Because even when we are talking of these interventions, we are still talking of largely government schools. Many private schools have closed. The Minister of Finance is on record to have told them to sell, stop bothering him with the problems and sell off the schools. So can we have a study of how many schools are likely to open and what status are they in? And what are those schools that can never come back to as players in the education sector? And how many students did they have? And where will these students be absorbed? So these are the interventions and discussions that should be taking place. We should be having an update as a country, as citizens, if the leaders of the education sector are accountable and really serious in what they are doing. Okay. But then also we need to have mechanisms of improving transparency. Constrained budget, falling revenues, reducing incomes, then you have excessive expenditure, even on things that are not really priority.
Maybe just
okay. I want us to go for a break. When we come back, Dr. Barumuzi, you have a lot on your table, but I will want to first bring in Dr. Muhumuza to respond on some of the critical economic issues raised, and then I bring in Dr. Barumuzi to respond, and then the debate will be more open. Let's keep it more open for the next 30 minutes when we come back from the break. So let's take that break now, but as we go for that break, thanks a lot to Cafe Pap for, the coffee that is being served here is freshly brewed Cafe Pap coffee, and we thank you for being perhaps the longest serving coffee entity around town. Let's go for that break now, and we will be right back. This is Behind the Headlines.
Grow together with one of Uganda's largest companies. Apply for MTN shares for as low as 100,000 Uganda shillings. And when you apply using MTN Mobile Money, you get 10 free extra shares for every 100 shares you apply for. Dial *165*65# or use the MyMTN app to apply now. The terms and conditions of the offer and other important information are set out in the prospectus. For assistance, visit any MTN service center or Stanbic Bank branch countrywide or a licensed broker.
Kagalino twalekedde ekyatulese tuzze tukalanga enfunda eziwerako ddala. Eno yego TV Super ey'abakaguje njagala weekaanyi. Ewatali kwemamaaza olwo tuba tusimbudde ne Go TV Super Duper waawawa. Era nga bakutuusyako ekiga eky'abakabejja abasajja eŋŋwaŋŋuli kwogata ne busineema obujjudde omuhabati ku $5,015 waawawa. Soka Blaza weefunye ekirungo kya Go TV Super ekijjudde obulungi ove mu baaje.
Transact using Airtel Money. Use Airtel Money to send money, buy airtime for self, do mobile banking, make merchant payments and international money transfers with a minimum of 1,000 shillings and get 5 minutes free Airtel to Airtel calls valid for 24 hours. Free minutes offer is for any of these fast 5 transactions within the same calendar month. Terms and conditions apply. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless.
Introducing the all-new Roofing's TMX 500C rebars with cut and bend surfaces. Roofing's, strength of a nation.
Everyone is talking about MTN shares. I am Jenny Kafulua Shares, and I am here to show you how you can get them. First, you need a Securities Central Depository account, or SCD account in short, and you can open one right now using MTN Momo. It's free of charge. Just get your phone and your national ID, and let me show you how. Now, why do you need an SCD account? Well, because every time you get shares in any company, well, including MTN, your shares are going to be kept in this account. But this is not a bank account, and you don't need to go anywhere to open it. So is your phone and your national ID ready? Good. Let me show you how to open your SCD account. First, dial *165*65# or use my MTN app. Then select option 1 to submit SCD account application. Then enter your full national ID number or NIN. Next, select your preferred stockbroker and then choose option 1 to accept the terms and conditions. Lastly, enter your mobile money PIN and wait for confirmation, which you will receive on SMS. Oh, by the way, stockbrokers are the people authorized to help you buy or sell any listed company shares, so you need to choose one. That's it. Once you have your SCD account, you're ready to start applying for your MTN shares for as low as 100,000 shillings for 500 shares.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Kagalino twalekedde ekyatulese tuzze tukalanga enfunda eziwerako ddala. Eno ye Go TV Super ey'abakaguje njagala weekaanyi. Ewatali kwemamaaza olwo tuba tusimbudde ne Go TV Super Duper waawawa. era nga bakutuusaako ekiga ekyabakabejja abasajja eŋŋwaŋŋuli kw'ogatta ne busineema obujjudde omuhabati ku 5,115 wawawa soka bulaza weefunye ekirungo kya GoTV Super ekijjudde obulungi ove mu baaje.
Pay bills using Airtel Money. Make any bill payment within a month with a minimum of 5,000 Uganda shillings and get 10 minutes free Airtel to Airtel calls valid for 24 hours. Dial *185*4# or use the My Airtel app to pay for water, buy yaka, pay TV, and so much more. Terms and conditions apply. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless.
Welcome back from the break, and this is Behind the Headlines. This November 3rd, 2021. We are now going towards the end of the year, but COVID is still an issue, and the latest development coming from government that the country will be opened up come January 2022, and that's forming the major part of our discussion. For the next 30 minutes, we are going to, or the half of the hour, we are going to be looking at and concluding on that discussion, though it is a discussion that will come again even before January. And then the last 30 minutes of today's segment, we shall take a quick look at probably the most trending discussion coming from that controversy generated by the letter of Disaster Preparedness Minister, Engineer Hilary Onek. But that will be in the last part of the discussion. Can I request my technical team to give me some messages? I'm told there are so many messages that have come from the viewers out there. Quick ones. Nduga Shaban from Kalisizo in Chotera says, good evening UBC and thanks for the show. How comes that we are remaining with less than 2 months to reopen schools, but we don't have a calendar in place? Dr. Chris Bariomusi, that question is going to you from Shaban. Saith Nyesiga Bwerere from Kanyarieru, Nyabushozi in Kiruhura district says, I support the full reopening of schools and the economy at large, because the longer the economy remains shut, the higher the effect on per capita income and tax base reduction, though we should devise means on how to live within the situation as we revive the economy process by process. Alex Pikiriza, teacher Ibanda, says, when will the old senior one resume, and when will the recently selected open? 2, are there plans to retool, retrain teachers to suit the post-COVID teaching? Honorable Minister may answer. Thank you. But that's a question that may also be answered by Seungu, the teachers here. Julius says, thanks for the show. The government is emphasizing vaccination, but there are no vaccines at health centers. I personally have visited our health centers 5 times, but they keep telling me no vaccines. So what should we do? I wish you had told us where it would have been. For now, the last one sampled is from Ochan Simon from Gulu. He says, please, can you let all the honorables in the House stop blame game and give the public what the government is doing for schools, since they all are in the system? This will give hope for the parents to raise the little they have lost, not to rise, to raise the little they have lost for their children to go back to school. But also specifically, someone sent on my private Twitter, and actually for UBC, sorry, and copied me, Matua Job Richard. He says, Honorable Seungu is against science teachers. Kindly tell him to completely avoid talking against science teachers. Money. The money issues are not a joke. Then he says, Seungu was amongst those who failed the same money in 2018. Seungu, you will have to answer that.
I will answer that.
After Dr. Muhumuza, Dr. Sarah talked, I think, especially to your passion. She said that the economy, there should be minimizing of expenditure on wastage, and you earlier had mentioned something similar, though in different words. You said that we should, as a country, redirect our priorities. I need you to make a follow-up on that, in addition to what Seungu had said. I think that a lot of money was spent towards, you know, was it Seungu or Mapenduzi, buying pickups and all this. Government thought that that is a priority. But there are other areas that government is focusing on spending on. What should exactly be done and done better?
Yeah, I think it's really a pertinent issue, and the conversation is going on. You don't just easily turn a train like you turn a bicycle. There are some mentalities in government that will go on, but you sometimes begin to see some lines of hope on certain decisions that are being made. And I think one of the things we should have been kind enough here, if I knew the trend was going this way, to have somebody from the Ministry of Education to come and tell us what they are planning. Because the little I know is a lot is going on with the Ministry of Education in preparation for January. Some of the conversation I'm hearing here is already being done. How many private schools may not open come January? What should be the alternative for those particular children? And we all know that there are a number of government schools, big ones that we knew, where me and you studied, which right now have very low numbers of children. Because the children had gone either to private schools or these schools were not there to attract them in one sense or another. Now government is already working out modalities of saying if these private schools do not open, can these be absorbed into the neighboring government schools that have capacity? So what should we do with this? Now when you go on the ground, you may not find it there at this point in time, because that information is being gathered, and soon the Ministry of Education will come out with a response and a plan, and I'm very sure there may be a supplementary on that to prepare, but after they have gotten the facts on the ground. I know for a fact that that is happening, because in the conversations I've had in the Ministry of Finance, that has been requested for. And we all know the government budget is not there to just swing. Honorable Seungu would have to receive it as a supplementary request. Now, speaking to your earlier conversation, and I think this is where Honorable Seungu comes in very handy, should we at this point be printing teaching materials? The 54 billion should wait for that activity and that investment. So that's the due investment you want to do. I already have seen a Twitter, and I knew it was happening down there. The teaching materials in the past that were printed could not reach the children.
He didn't.
Because even if you dump them at the school, where do these children come from? The head teacher will not know where these children emerge from, which forests and bushes. So they cannot go and deliver these materials. So I am one of those who still think that was a wastage of resources, and these are the things we need to be really think through. It may work out theoretically, but in reality can it be done? And there's a lot of wastage in those kinds of areas of intervention. So that is happening, and really the detail will come through to the best of my knowledge. But also let's also know we are a small economy. We do not have the money. And so let's behave like that. We cannot behave like the UK, we cannot behave like the... And we know our economy, really the children will come back to school. They may not find all the desks in the position that they should be, but can we solve that in the first 1 month as we limp on? Because we do not have all the money. A lot of the resources that Honorable Seungu was talking about, the capitation, really goes to run the children when they are in school. It is for paying for water, for electricity, for most of those things, for food. Now that they were not there, that's why it was frozen. And it wasn't frozen that it was available. Many times I find this challenge when people think that if you have not spent it, it's available. Remember, this is money we are going to borrow anyway. So when you find an opportunity not to spend it, you have also grabbed an opportunity not to borrow it. And that's the conversation that the government budget being adjusted, the cuts we are hearing. That's a rational conversation. And we should be looking at those as some of the positive things. Now, that will actually help us to resuscitate the economy. But also on the science side, there is a lot that is going on. This is a science week, for people who may not have noticed. And the Ministry of Science, Innovation and Technology is actually out there, and the messages have been coming through. A lot of scientists have picked up this pandemic. So how best do we prepare? So we have some vaccines being prepared. We have vaccine factories lined up that in future we may not find ourselves in this state. So there are lessons that are being picked. And that I think also speaks to the past. Why didn't we buy the vaccines? We all know that the situation we are in today, globally, even if you had money early this year, you wouldn't find vaccines to buy. Because the rich had paid for even what hadn't been manufactured. And that's why we were waiting for donations from them. But now those windows are opening up. But we're saying never again. We should also begin to build like India. India may not come up with a vaccine of its own, but they manufacture 60% of the world's vaccines. So for them, all they have set up is a factory to multiply. Now, when they got the Delta variant, India, with its over 1 billion people, just froze any sales to anybody in the world, including those who had signed up and paid. They just said, we need to save our population first. So there were those dynamics which are now behind us, that now you can afford to pay and the vaccines will be available. And I want to believe, with the conversation that one of the people have raised here, I think the biggest problem now is not that people are not going for vaccination. We still need more vaccines. There are lots of people, those messages coming through. I have gone and I have not found the vaccines there. So can we make sure that is ticked, that whoever needs to find a vaccine, they can find it? Then we begin to chase those who are reluctant. I know there are some who are reluctant, but I'm more concerned with those who want to be vaccinated and they can't find that vaccine. Can we ramp up those
Doctor, some information and which goes then to the Honorable Minister. Just in Intinda, next to my office, in Minister's Village, I know people who walk to the vaccination center every day and there are no vaccines for about 2 weeks. So if we are seeing no vaccines in Kampala, and in the village, of course, it is worse, and the president said there are about 5 million doses in store, are we waiting for these vaccines to expire? Why are they not in the centers?
No, I think some of them are to come in, we have paid. But as I've said, the global supply
even here, the vaccines around, the president
now,
said.
Those are the conversations we're also having with the Ministry of Health to say, what is your vaccination plan? You don't wait for vaccines to land in Entebbe for you to begin making a plan. You should be doing like UNEP does. Their exams are on a certain day, and their plan is already done. On that day, they are delivered, done, and picked. Now, we need a long-term plan from Ministry of Health to say, for the vaccines coming on the 15th of November, when do they get to Budaka? When do they get to Bugiri? And are the nurses there? Have they been facilitated? That kind of plan is needed and is being asked for from the ministry so that the vaccines don't have to stay any longer once they get into the country. I think those are, for me, the preparatory areas we don't see. And I am hoping we're not going to see them in education when schools open. And that's why the Ministry of Finance has asked for a plan from the Ministry of Education. And we still have some time. The program where it happens next, this is early November. People are starting in January. So I think Ministry of Education can still give that plan in mid-December on how people will proceed.
Good. I can see Ministry of Education and government may not have Christmas this year because they must plan for that January. But Dr. Baremunsi, a lot of questions thrown in your direction. Plan for those who were in total lockdown, what is there? The challenge that, was there any sector that was really locked down? And of course, the members have produced evidence of the unfortunate terrorist attacks which exposed some of the news behind the headlines, and of course the issue of expenditure, wastage, that Are we serious when we prioritize long-term, projects, and yet now, like Dr. Muhumuza says, and also Sarah argue, that we need to plan for quick fix things, that respond to some of those, and then I will bring in your colleagues here. In the next 10 minutes, we should get done with this topic and touch on another topic. Honorable Baramusi.
You see, first of all, Uganda has done very well in containing and managing the COVID-19 pandemic, because we were hit beginning March 2020. You recall the index case here in Uganda was on the 21st of March, but because of the measures announced, we delayed the onset of death. The first death was in July, and then we got a wave peaking in November, December. And then we were able to suppress the infections. Then again, we got another second wave in May, June, July this year. When you look at the global dynamics, a number of countries are in the third, fourth plus waves. So we've been able to suppress infections. Even when you look at projections which had been done by scientists at the beginning of the pandemic, we've been able to suppress lots of infections, suppress deaths, and the documentation is there in the peer-reviewed journals on how Uganda has been one of the best performers in terms of containing COVID-19. So the investment, the money we have put in the fight against COVID-19 has shown results. Even when you look at people who have died, people who have been infected, people who have been hospitalized, we eventually got fewer numbers. Although, of course, when it comes to sickness and death, it is important not to make people look like statistics. They are human beings. Even if it is one person dying, it is still painful. But generally, we have done very well. And when we are announcing the measures, we don't have to necessarily follow what other countries are doing. Like when you say Kenya has opened, has lifted the curfew, we don't have to see Kenya lifting, then we lift. We base on science, and we base on what we see and what we know. Because when we say the president of Kenya was announcing, so therefore we must also announce. No.
While standing.
That's why I retorted.
The curfew was already at 10 p.m. Anyway.
Yeah,
I don't think it was there anyway.
I retorted and said, let's distinguish form from substance. So we have generally done very well. But also to note that we have been gradually opening the space, because you recall there were times when there was more or less a complete lockdown, and progressively we've been opening. There are still areas which are closed. Yes, there may be lapses and indiscipline among some of the actors in the country. You see, when we do serious policing, you are the fellows who will start complaining that police is harsh. When police and security agencies think that Ugandans will be understanding enough to follow these measures, then again, like when you say the bomb unfortunately happened, people were in a bar. But when we do strict policing, Honorable Sewong will be the very person to complain in the parliament why police is very strict. But it's true, there are lapses, and there are people who are indisciplined. They do not follow the SOPs, like Honorable Sewong, who has refused to put on a mask, even when all of us are masked.
Yes, then I'm safe.
So
actually, that's the vaccination of 80%.
I was 80%, yes. So
we've developed herd immunity.
We've done very well. Like what I said earlier on, that at the height of the second wave, we were posting positivity rates of up to 21%, meaning that out of every 100 people you would test, 21 would test positive. That was the peak. But this, because of the measures, has reduced to 1% now, which is very phenomenal, which is very substantial. So you can't say we have wasted money. It means the measures which the president and the government announced have actually worked. And now we are saying gradually we have to open. And we are tagging the opening to strict observance of SOPs, but most importantly, to vaccination. The vaccines, Honorable Mapenduzi was saying, we who advised the president, why didn't we advise him on vaccination early enough? Because we're saying vaccination is important. You have to understand the history of these vaccines. At the beginning, they were not there because the scientists were still in their laboratories. It was at the beginning of this year when there was a breakthrough with some of the vaccines. And then we started seeing vaccine nationalism, where countries which have a lot of money paid up front and even bought off all the vaccines. Even when we sat as parliament and put money, we had money as government, but you could not access these vaccines. But true, some of the vaccines which are receiving are now being procured by government. For instance, the Johnson & Johnson that we have received, we have paid for it, and we have booked up to 9 million doses. So far we received 1.2 million doses. The Sinopharm and Sinovac from China, we have paid. Yes, the other vaccines are being donated because there is a program within the framework of vaccines that some come through donations to other countries and we have to accept them, but we are also procuring now that there are more doses globally and the manufacturing companies are now willing to give out. Even the countries which had hoarded some of them, they have more or less vaccinated over 80% of their population. Now they can give out some of the hoarded vaccines. So vaccines are progressively becoming more available through donations, but also purchases by government. I think one of the reasons why you may see people may walk and don't get vaccines that we've been prioritizing particular categories of the people to be vaccinated. The 4.8 million Ugandans have been talking about special categories: students, teachers, health workers, security personnel, people who are aged above 50 years, or those who are 50 years but have comorbidities. We've been targeting because the vaccines have been few. So if you don't fall in that category, it can be possible you may walk to the vaccination center and they tell you, we are still targeting the teachers and the students. But as members of parliament, whenever vaccines reach my constituency, I receive a message.
We do. That is.
Even you do. So why are you saying that
no, but
that the vaccines are not coming? Let me just give an example.
No.
Let me just give an example. Because I have
my turn.
Today, the 3rd of November.
Yes.
The 3rd of November at 9 minutes past 14 hours. I received a message saying NMS has delivered COVID-19 vaccines for Kanungu district in Kanungu to Mr. Mujendo Ario, and they put his number, and this is the district cold chain technician.
That is by NMS.
By NMS.
Yeah.
I received a message at the 18 minutes to 6 p.m. NMS has delivered COVID-19 supplies of Kambuga Hospital in Kanungu district to Kemiji Shashakira. They put her number, who is the store's officer. Received it today. So the vaccines are being delivered.
How many doses?
No, the doses now you can call the person who received.
Yeah, you have
and
it
you get
there,
details.
Honourable Minister.
You
have
details.
it there.
So the vaccines are being delivered.
It is there.
One of the challenges is that the health center threes, like in the villages where the vaccination taking place, maybe is far from villages. So some people may not walk from a village to a Gomborora level. But vaccines, as they become available, they are being distributed. Yes, the Ministry of Health could plan better, like is being suggested, but as vaccines come, they are not being kept in stores, they are being sent in the countryside.
Okay.
And moving forward, more vaccines are going to be available. Are we ready for the opening? Yes. About schools, earlier on we announced that the medical and health training institutions would open. Those opened and they are running. Earlier on we announced that universities and tertiary institutions would open beginning in November, and they are opening. And the universities have been preparing. And I am happy with the management of the universities that they are strictly saying, before we allow you, show us that you have been vaccinated. Where big numbers come without vaccination cards, they are setting up vaccination centers.
Wrong. That's wrong.
No, vaccination. No, we are not saying that we are chasing students from the education system. We are saying get vaccinated. So if you come when you haven't been vaccinated, an opportunity is provided to you to get vaccinated, and then you get into school. And
that one, okay.
We are also preparing for the January opening of the schools, secondary schools and primary schools. The Ministry of Education, together with the Ministry of Health, are having discussions almost on a daily basis, working out the nitty-gritty. So somebody who was asking, now when will the senior one students who had begun, then those who missed being admitted, those who have been admitted now, those arrangements are being worked out by the Ministry of Education together with the Health, and a comprehensive plan will be announced in due course to show that senior one is going to have like 3 classes. So how are they going to be sequenced to access education? So all those details, it's just too late. This is beginning of November. We have November, we have December. So the Ministry of Education, working with the Health, are working out those details which shall be communicated in due process.
Okay.
Are there sectors which are still closed? Definitely. Yes, there may be indiscipline here and there, but the area, for instance, public transport, people are traveling half capacity in the buses. Curfew is still there. Even when Seungu comes here, honorable, and admits he has given a bribe as a member of parliament to police officers, but the curfew is there. Curfew is there.
Yeah, it was facilitation.
Support.
Sympathy.
It's not a bribe.
No. Yes. You said you came here and said you gave Kit Kido. That's not a very good example.
Yes. The
The bars, we still want to insist. Bars.
And you should also give
someone is saying that, for example, the bus that was that had a bomb on it, it was actually carrying full capacity.
Yes, those are lapses in enforcement, but the directives still remain. Now the police, the traffic police should be enforcing those measures. There may be weaknesses in enforcement, yes, but the measures still stand. So when the president says we are going to fully open in November, then some of those restrictions which are still there will be relaxed. What we require the population to do is that, one, we continue observing these basic SOPs, because the risk and challenge of corona still remains. Even when I'm saying the positivity rates, the infection rates are coming down, we still have districts like Kampala here where we are, like parts of Teso, parts of Acholi, Oyamo district, Kabale, Rwanda, where we are posting high and rising infection rates. So there is a progressive improvement, but the challenge still remains there. So let's continue observing the SOPs and the preventive measures, but most importantly, let us embrace vaccination. We are going to bring in more vaccines, but also everybody should take responsibility. If your school has turned bushy, if ant-hills have mounted in the classrooms, their parents, there is management. You don't have to wait for Honorable Seungu, the MP, to come and tell you to remove the ant-hill in the school. So the parents, the teachers, the school management should also start preparing the schools so that we get ready for January. The money, it's good that Honorable Seungu said the money had been sent, then an instruction was given to freeze the money, to keep it. So the money, and more money is going to be given to schools, and I think money is already starting to flow to schools in the preparation for the opening. So we don't expect major challenges. By January, schools will be ready. Yes, there will be challenges like in private schools, which have suffered much more than government schools, but the government is aware. We've already discussed it in the cabinet, and we instructed the Minister of Finance to engage with the Bank of Uganda and the commercial banks to discuss the loan facilities which some of these schools had procured, so that there is a relaxed and staggered way of paying back, so that the schools are not choked with this burden of debts. That discussion is ongoing between Ministry of Finance, Bank of Uganda, and the commercial banks, so that the schools and other business entities can be cushioned and they don't suffer the big effects of COVID-19.
Thank you very much. Honorable Seungu, you had a personal direct question from someone, and I just want to give you time to respond to that.
I criticize the education under NRM, but he has acquired his degrees during NRM time. And we take him as a very good, as an educated, good MP.
Now, Chris Walimu seems very interesting. Yes. He says I should not have been born.
No.
Because he should not have been born and I should not even have a wife, children, because you are against NRM. No. My rights are my rights. And you are not that who educated me.
But NRM which educated you. And you are one of the,
as he has always done.
You are one of the good MPs.
So, as he has always
unless
done.
If you doubt your capacity.
As he has always done. When we meet in the parliament and I seek information from you, let him continue getting my information and clarifications.
Yes, I always.
He has always done so, because this program we shall get into parliament where whatever you said,
yes,
and many things will take off. However,
I will be there.
Let me first respond to my fellow teacher in his question. You see, Sewungu Joseph Gonzaga, I fight for all teachers, not particular teachers, all specific teachers. I will not support at any day teachers to create unions from their own subjects that they teach. National Teachers Union of Teachers, Science Teachers, Geography Teachers. Secondly, it's very funny.
You mean the unions?
Unions, yeah, because the science teachers have created the union, Uganda, the Union of Professional Science Teachers. And let me say this. You see, I interact with most of these science teachers. One time one rang me complaining, asked him, my friend, he texted me on WhatsApp. Said, Sewungu, you were traitor, you see. I said, don't mind. I asked him, what language are you using to text me? English. Where did you learn it from in school? Who taught you English? An English teacher. Is he a scientist or a teacher for humanities? Now, why are you speaking English and using English on my WhatsApp? Those are the questions I ask these people. As we talk now, Ministry of Education has said that they are shutting down grade 3 teachers and diploma holders to bachelors. You get me?
Yeah.
Now, when you talk of, already I was in primary teaching at Shimon, I was having a bachelor's in education. And I did the bachelor's social studies, English at Makerere. That's what I studied. Now, fellow teachers think, when I fight for all of them, when I was fighting for all of them, they think I'm good. They were saying I'm very good. It's me, Sewungu Joseph Gonzaga, who fought for science teachers to get an extra increment against others, but not exorbitant. They think
you don't want to be paid well.
I want everybody to be paid well, but I don't agree. We are here on the panel.
Yes.
You can take a random sample for amongst us who says Chris Bayomus is here as a minister that he thinks a headmaster should be earning less than a science teacher. A secondary school teacher head teacher is earning 2.5 million, supervising a teacher who is supposed to earn 4.5 million. And you think Sewungu Joseph Gonzaga will accept that? They don't think, unless, let me say them, there is nobody who can intimidate me on this.
They are not intimidating you, but they are saying that.
Oh, I have a lot of messages, but I'm used to that. But they think government will pay them money. There is no money they're going to pay teachers. That's a political talk, and it will not take course. However, I will continue fighting for all teachers as I've always done. Because even arts are thanking me as others complain. I have never
let me clarify,
yes.
For the benefit of when I was Sewungu, the government intends to raise pay for all teachers.
Yes. Very good.
But we are beginning with the science teachers. So even the art teachers eventually will get a pay rise. So when it comes, don't say I am the one who talks about it.
Let me tell you, Honorable Chris. Honorable Chris, let us not mislead the teachers when we are on UBC. You remember when we had the battle for teachers in 2012, 2011? Amama was the Prime Minister. We gave it staggering for 4 years. Remember, Charles, you were a reporter by then. We went and sat with the government. We said, pay increase of teachers, but give them 15% for a period of 4 years. Yeah. You cannot start with one group and leave the other. That one is not there. No, and actually, those who are married, teachers are married themselves. A man, I don't know, Madam, forgot Madam's name.
Sarah.
Sarah is a science teacher, married to someone who is an art teacher. They are sleeping in the same house. Sarah is earning 4 million, someone is earning 1.5. They are married in that family.
What is wrong with that?
Oh my God.
What would be wrong with that?
All the vice versa.
No, what would be wrong with that?
You must have bad husband.
Even in life.
You must.
But however, let us see, you invite me for that debate.
You must earn better than your wife.
Please, Charles, you invite me for that debate another day. But however, I'm going to continue fighting for all teachers.
Oh, that's good.
And I will fight for them. I will win the battle. But I don't want segregation.
Okay.
And it is against our Constitution and the Employment Act. Go and look at that. So, but let me go back to what you are asking.
No, I think we need to touch on another, our final topic.
No, there's something Dr. misled and it should be clear.
Dr. misled?
Yes.
What did he say?
Doctor,
you didn't understand.
I think, Doctor, you have changed your positions these days, but I have taken long without meeting you. You cannot tell us that the Ministry of Education is investigating, finding out private schools that have not opened when they have not yet found out their government owned schools that have not yet opened. Secondly, when our Mapendus is here, I trust him because he has been an OC5 chairman. Recently, the Ministry of Education was directing all head teachers to go and do another registration of their institutions. But they not invite parents, they not invite the children, because you cannot register schools again without getting the population of children in those schools. It's not there.
You're told that process is ongoing.
And that, but it's not correct. That's what is not correct. The process of registering schools again, the information you need includes the children.
Yeah, but that's the next level. You first find out the school, as I told you. So it's not misleading. Where I came from, I said from the Ministry of Finance, because finance is interested. What will be the budget implication? So they have asked the Ministry of Education to go and find out this information. When the schools open, what private schools may not open, so that we can plan to accommodate them in the government schools, which will come to you with the budget implication, and that information has gone.
Okay.
And you can only get that.
Okay. Gentlemen, we are definitely going to have more discussions.
Now he has been
I can guarantee you in the next number of discussions, as we proceed towards, as we move closer to the opening of the full opening of the economy, we will be having this discussion, and we will be
absolutely.
We will be even be discussing them. And I want to appeal to, because all of you here are critical players in some of these sectors. Dr. Bariomunsi in information, but more especially in health and of course the Dr. Muhumuza economics and all that. Seungo in education, we are definitely going to be having those discussions. But I need us to touch, we cannot miss using, applying our title here very well. The behind the headlines is supposed to actually touch on the issues that are happening behind the headline. The headline is talking about, the main headline is about Honorable Hilary Onek, accusing the Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Nabanja, of micromanagement. And I will just read the last two paragraphs which made the news. And we want to ask the question, what exactly is happening behind that headline? The last paragraph says, I have worked, this is Hilary Onek signing, I have worked with the 3 previous prime ministers, and all along I know that their constitutional role is to coordinate legislative agenda, lead government business in parliament, and monitor all ministries and government programs. They never got involved in the micromanagement of other ministries. If you decide to micromanage other ministries, what then is the role of the sector ministers who are supposed to plan, make policies, and deliver on the manifesto of His Excellency the President? Finally, and this is the last paragraph, Right Honorable Prime Minister, if you have decided to carry on working like this and rendering my docket irrelevant, kindly put it in writing to His Excellency the President, who is the appointing authority, and I will relieve myself of my responsibilities and allow you carry on with your duties. I will not, and he put the not in capital letters, be held accountable for decisions that have been taken without my input. Yours faithfully, I like the finishing, that I'm still faithful to you. Yours faithfully, Engineer Hilary Onek, Minister for Relief, Disaster Preparedness and Refugees, and he copies the letter to the President, Speaker of Parliament, Deputy Speaker of Parliament, and the rest. Honorable Minister, given we have now short few minutes, what I'm going to do, let the rest comment and then you respond so that we way forward. Sarah, when you saw this making rounds, what came to your mind? What exactly is happening in your view? What should be done?
Well, first of all, I think it was not surprising. Why
not surprising?
I personally want to note my reservations, though not directly on this issue, but seeing the Prime Minister everywhere dishing out money. One time she was visiting people who are sick with the leg infections. Then another time people lining. Then she jumped to those who were in green t-shirts. Then recently, I don't know whether it was a concert with some musician. It is not a good image for our leaders to carry on as mobile bullions and the business of handouts and throwing money amidst poor and suffering people. I am not happy with that bit, the conduct of the Prime Minister. I just wish she could act differently. Away from that...
Are they too connected?
Yes, because it is a leader. If I stand here to speak, I am the Executive Director of Center for Constitutional Governance. If I speak uncoordinated things, people are right to doubt the work that I lead at the organization, because they will have evidence of what I do in public. So a conduct of a leader says a lot about the way they do business. Away from that, I think supervising and government programs and ensuring things are done the way they are planned to do is not bad. And the Honorable Nabanja, Right Honorable Nabanja, we've seen her in the field, supervising service delivery. She said she wants to ensure service reaches to the people. That is a good thing. But she must coordinate with her ministers. So what I read from Engineer Honorable Nek's letter is frustrations. Frustration, but it's a one-sided story. So I've not read the Right Honorable Prime Minister's response to Engineer. I saw her clip to the media.
Yes.
But
she makes actually a worse accusation and accuses her minister Onek of laziness.
Laziness and indiscipline.
Yes.
So what I saw from her clip, she said she's seeing the letter on social media, yet their offices are next to each other. Then she talks about, of course, laziness and indiscipline, which I cannot substantiate or realize as a panelist on this show. But it is right for the Honorable Minister to supervise government programs. Okay. However, she must properly coordinate with her ministers and other
Maybe,
staff.
Honorable Baramus, one of the things you will tell us at the end is what entails supervision and coordination. You will tell us when we are winding up. Thanks, Sarah. Honorable Mapenduzi, the Honorable Hilary Onek accuses the Prime Minister, and someone was reminding me actually that this is not the first time. That the only thing that this shows us is that there is now social media and that this is widely known, but that actually the late Honorable Didi accused the late Honorable Nsivambi of the same, except that we didn't know because there is no letter that leaked. Social media wasn't there, but this one now, even before the New Vision, Observer or Monitor have it, it is out there for all of us to see the dirt that is going on behind the scenes. But Honorable Nek accuses the Prime Minister of micromanagement, of hijacking his role. And then the Prime Minister retorts and says, you know, from the onset, I promised the country that my work will be active and everybody must work in the field and all that. I'm not going to entertain laziness. I'm not going to entertain indiscipline. What is your view, Honorable Mapenduzi? These are your colleagues at Parliament.
You know, the whole thing sends a very worrying kind of message to the country.
Why should we be worried? We are here. People are excited that. Well, so even in cabinet, it is like that.
There should be no excitement. I think it's quite disturbing that people who are trusted with the responsibility of managing the country and serving the interests of Ugandans are beginning to demonstrate that kind of, and I think that must stop. I think the Honorable Minister, whom I consider very sober, and his colleagues should really come in, because it gives the image of the cabinet. Now, what is more disturbing? This is not the first time the Honorable Minister Eli Ronek is raising a concern. My senior brother, Honorable Seungu, will tell you that I think about a few months ago, the Honorable Eli Ronek raised a concern about some 5 billion shillings, and still sending the same accusation in that direction. And Parliament demanded for an explanation, and we are waiting for that explanation. The Honorable Eli Ronek is saying money that was meant for disaster management related activities got diverted, 5 billion shilling, and actually said he should not be held accountable for that because it's not the right way. And then before that explanation is given to Parliament, because we want to know, it's public funds, 5 billion for disaster management related activities being alleged to have been diverted is not a small thing. Then this letter, I think I really want to give my respect to Honorable Eli Ronek. When things are not right, we should not fear to express it. We should not fear to point out where things are not being done correctly, and so that people who have got ears can make improvement. But I think it's unfortunate that the manner in which the Right Honorable Prime Minister has responded, I think that is a bit unfortunate. Because, yes, if she had not received the letter, it would be a lot more prudent to say, okay, well, I've seen this through the social media. When I get it, I'll respond. But then you go to and then you say it's lazy and this and that becomes personal. It's actually diversionary. It doesn't respond to the issues being raised. The issues being raised is not about Eli Ronek as an individual. It's about a ministry. There is a senior minister, there is a state minister. They are not being involved. That is what the letter says.
No, so minus the reading, the detailed reading, it means that they are related, actually. And I'm being a devil's advocate.
That's right.
And not to say that they are right, that any of them is right. If it is, you can jump in and do work which someone is not doing, hence the accusation that you are micromanaging, but someone is micromanaging because perhaps the person is not doing their work, hence the laziness accusation.
You know, again, that takes me to issues of system building and governance. If a minister is not performing his or her functions, what steps do you take to hold them accountable? Maybe
we need to find out how fishermen were working.
Well, I am not going to talk about the fishermen.
I'd forgotten that part.
And that's why I'm saying I am saying it's worrying, because yes, there could be people who are lazy and so on, but what mechanism is in place to hold people
Dr. Baramuzi, you have another question.
Yes.
What mechanism is there in cabinet?
And then the last one, which I think just as she put it, I think we need to have a much deeper reflection on how things are happening in government. First, I think it sends a very bad message, and it's a bad culture for a government official of a certain caliber to go to the community and begin giving money. It sends a very bad message. People are lining up, you pick money and give, there is excitement, and how do you account?
Okay.
Secondly, I have watched, Nigerian movies and all that, where people throw money, count money in your head and throw it. I think, and then on the other end, we are saying the economy is not doing well.
Okay.
That is not right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Mapenduzi. Dr. Baramuzi, you have some bit of questions to answer. Honorable Seungu, when you see these things happening, I don't want to say that there is that saying that when your enemy is making a mistake, you don't interrupt them. I don't want to say that is what you feel as an opposition person, but I need your objective view of what this letter reflects. What exactly is happening behind the scenes between these senior ministers? Do you think that they need to sort it out in a different, more mature manner?
Actually, Charles, when I was studying in St. Savio some years back, we used to have Brother Martin Karunji. May his soul rest in peace. He was from Brothers of Christian Instruction. He used to remind us two things. Neglect nothing, but mind about Mr. Penn. Mind about Mr. Penn.
Mr. Penn, the
Mr.
writer.
Penn, the writer. You see, when I was teaching at Shimoni, we used to make mistakes, and the teacher would call us to his office to make up written apologies. But for me, he was known for not writing a written apology to the headmaster. I would kneel before him in his office, plead, forgive me, I'm not doing it again, but I'm not writing an apology. Then the headmaster would keep me there for hours, says, I've forgiven you. Then those who could continue writing, they would be hammered somewhere in the corner. As you see, these are the letters you've been writing. We can no longer continue in this school because it's very dangerous, right?
To put things in writing.
In writing. First of all, I was reading something on social media. You see, there is a team called the Amavubi Stars, and Amavubi is called literally the same as fishermen. Now we are having Amavubi Stars in the cabinet fighting in Amahoro Stadium.
And Amahoro is what?
Amavubi Stars are the footballers of Rwanda.
His letter is unprecedented, and let me say this. When he wrote his letter, it cannot be the Prime Minister who put this letter in the public. It must be from his side if we are to make deep investigations. Now, the rebuttal he got from one of the Prime Minister's group was also something called why Hillary neck. I had kept it somewhere here. It is called secret report. Now, they are giving all the evidence that is the public consumption for us to know the root within the system. What is lacking in this government is delegation of power. Let me tell you, the Honorable Chris Balimus and many others of their category. Go and look at what Mwai Kibaki did in Kenya after taking power. When Moi was in power for 38 years. 28 years. What Mwai Kibaki did was to give delegation to his ministers and prime ministers. They had the authority. Now, what is happening here? Everybody is thinking of pleasing the fountain. You cannot be a prime minister for these few months and you lose trust in your fellow ministers. It is unfair. But what's funny, that's what I say, that he's lazy and weak. I think that's what you have said. That's indiscipline.
Lazy and indiscipline.
So, in cabinet, a good government, all these matters would be held in-house. For us, when I went in the military police, because I was there for 10 years teaching soldier children, there was I don't know whether he's watching now, a brigadier, I think he's a general now, General Wakal, by then he was a major. He was our commanding officer and he was a safety man. So we had the competitions of music, and I had a song, which was a traditional song, where they were bringing traditional gods, Rubale, on the stage. You know that how they play, the shakers and what have you. So this man was a safety man. He started crying, sitting there as a general, but he could not arrest me. He called me in his office, closed the door, cut and said, I wanted to arrest you, but why did you teach children those bad songs? He said, the general, these are the songs that were on theme this year, and you're supposed to train them. So this man never met me with the teachers, never met me with my headmaster and the teachers. We blamed me alone as the head of the music department. Honorable Hilaronek, I know him. These are the two Catholics. Nabaji is a Catholic, the other is a Catholic. We have to take them to the Archbishop or with them in the Skadwambara to cleanse them.
So you don't want the president, the
because
authority
they are going to go for counter accusations, and the counter accusations are very dangerous. The sufferer and the citizens of Uganda. But in their regime, that's what is happening. They are going to hit each other, minus those who went through very good institutions that trained administration. All that is lack of administration. Now, they had a full day on induction and training of ministers. Then after that, how do you come out and you start attacking each other in the public? It's not fair. However, that goes to the president. Now, Hillary is saying,
for the Archbishop should pray for them.
For them, but the president, because the president should. What is happening, and the Honourable Minister should answer this. How does the Prime Minister get staff from the Minister's office to carry his activities outside within his docket? Let us give delegation power.
Thank you so much.
It will show you. Actually, that's why I'm always complaining about
Dr. Muhumuza.
I want you to speak for everything. Not the way you have everybody coming talk on the same thing within the same hour, same minute, and the whole thing is flooded and people get confused.
Thank you,
now we see the Prime Minister is fighting with it. The tallest
Dr. Muhumuza, do you think that as some people, are concerned that maybe this is a sign of an outside reflection or external reflection of a certain internal, frustration and rot or whatever you want to call it, or is just one of those unique situations?
I think if I were to answer your question, then I would be on the headline.
But you are on the headline.
Allow me to go behind the headlines.
Okay, good.
Behind the headlines is some issues that Honorable Sewungu has raised. The public out there is about service delivery. And we look at cabinet as a team. Now it doesn't matter whether the goal was scored by a defender, who by definition is supposed to be scoring goals. All we need is the service being offered. So whether the service from the 5 billion comes from I don't know who, the public is waiting for that service and should be delivered. And quite often some defenders will say, if you guys can't score, we are coming in, especially in the very last corner kick. Even the goalkeeper comes.
The goalkeeper goes.
So to us, for me, the story is, are the services coming through? Because that's what we expect from cabinet, teamwork. Now, if that is one thing. Two is the issue of the management of public information. I've had the privilege of working with government, but one of the key things I learned from, rest in peace, Mr. Kasami, the former PSST, was the management of sensitive letters. So I worked in an office as advisor to the minister, where you'd get letters from the president, letters from the prime minister, which letters we preserved, they were not available for anybody to see. And the minister's office was very well structured on how to manage these letters. These are not letters you send into the archives. So one of the things he told me is when you're writing a letter, anybody you are giving CC to either must have reason to know or is actually going to take action. And there were certain letters, and I think it used to happen in the civil service, and this for me is the behind the headlines, the management of public information in these public offices.
Yeah.
There are certain letters you don't even give to an office messenger to take because of its sensitivity. It must be carried by a senior secretary or the PS or ministers themselves. You restrict circulation. So I think some of these things have gone away. That's the story behind the headlines. I can never forget a situation where I sat in a meeting and I was the minute taker, but by the caliber of the people who were in this meeting and the sensitivity of the issue we're handling, I had to drive to Entebbe myself to look for everybody who was in this meeting to sign the minutes. I could not even send anybody because of the sensitivity of the issue. So when I see these things happening, for me that is the collapse, which is the story behind the headlines. The last one is I think it's time for restructuring and rethinking of government. There are too many ministers in the office of the Prime Minister that it has now become actually an implementing agency. Yet it is supposed to be leader of government business. Initially it was understandable to have some of these ministers for Vinyora Affairs, Minister of State, Karamoja, Minister of State, who did not have senior ministers above them, be domiciled under the office of the Prime Minister. But now you have real cabinet ministers also in there. Maybe that's another area that may need to be rethought, because the Prime Minister would actually say, this is within my docket. If I don't see service, I will have to move it. And then the other minister will be saying, but I'm a cabinet minister, you have walked into my... The lines become a little bit blurred. Maybe that's the rethinking and restructuring of government.
General
so for
duties, Karamoja...
Yeah, so there are quite a number of them, so we possibly need to rethink that. And the Honorable Barrio Munsi.
Okay, finally, Honorable Barrio Munsi. Thanks, Dr. Muhumuza. Honorable Barrio Munsi, you have those questions. Respond to them and give us a way forward. Will this matter be resolved? Is government collapsing? Is government weak? What is happening? Why can't the headmaster and the, and all these senior teachers resolve their matters without it coming out the way it has come out?
Well, the letter has caused a storm, but it's a storm in a teacup. And there should be no cause to worry. First of all, here at ONEC, Honorable, is the Minister for Relief, Disaster Preparedness and Refugees in the office of the Prime Minister. It's different from the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, which is there. Even when you go to the office of the Prime Minister, they have a top management chaired by the Prime Minister, here on NEC being a member and the other ministers. So there you get a sense that the way the Prime Minister relates with here on NEC and the ministers there may be different from the way she relates to ICT and Ministry of Works and Health. So Honorable here on NEC is roofed in office of Prime Minister. I had a discussion with the President, maybe some of this I should not say, and I picked some of the reasons why he picked Honorable Nabanja to be Prime Minister. Two of the reasons I picked was one, the energy and enthusiasm with which she discharges her work. Two, the commitment to fighting corruption.
Option not misusing our energy on egg.
And all these have a special bearing on what is happening in the office of the Prime Minister. First of all, within the government we have internal mechanisms to resolve any conflicts. So speaking to that, the Honorable here on NEC is out of order. Even when he has a genuine concern, he could have, as a senior minister, have this issue sorted out within the government without necessarily writing a letter saturated on social media.
He might also write to you. He might write to you the way you have said that it's out of order.
He will. He
might write to you warning you in the same spirit.
No. I am the Minister for National Guidance. I have a duty to guide.
You say leave me out,
ministers. Please. No. So there are mechanisms within the government to resolve such misunderstandings, because it was not necessary for him to write, and like somebody said, it must have been his office or the people he copied it to who leaked the letter to social media. Because even this evening I spoke to the Prime Minister, she says she has not seen the letter or her desk, but it's all over social media. So that method of work is not correct. It's not correct. And even to what I've been observing, I think some of the contents of the letter in the letter are not accurate. I have seen the Right Honourable Prime Minister move with Honourable Anyakuni, who is the Minister of State for Disaster Preparedness in Changwari, where they fly in a helicopter. I've seen them because the news is always telecast on television. So, the 5 billion, I was in Parliament when that matter was raised. And the Prime Minister attempted to answer. She said she has been moving all over the country, especially to see the disaster-prone areas. And they requested for a supplementary from Finance, and the Finance gave 15 billion. When they sat in the office of the Prime Minister, she suggested, because she had observed there are health centers which have collapsed because of these floods, like in Burisa, a health center has just been destroyed. In some places, schools have been destroyed, and she's saying children are going back. So she suggested that instead of buying relief items, blankets, soap, tarpaulins, let us use 10 billion for the relief materials, and we use the 5 to reconstruct some of these facilities. And in the middle of the discussion, the Deputy Speaker cut her off and said, bring the statement in writing. And it has been appearing on the order paper, but she has not had a chance to present. And actually, when she began explaining, the members of Parliament were already applauding, because she was saying, what is the point of buying posho and beans all the time when there is a school which has submerged in the floods, and when we open, the children won't have anywhere to study. So some of this money should be used for restoring facilities like health units, like in Burisa. She talked somewhere in Mukono, Kayunga there, where a school had also submerged. So that's what I understood to be the issue.
Okay.
And these issues can be resolved within Parliament, not Parliament, but within the internal structures of government.
Okay.
For instance,
way forward.
Honorable Nek could have chosen to raise that matter in the cabinet, because on Monday we had a cabinet and he was there, the Prime Minister was there. We would have discussed it and propose how they can work together. So,
okay.
Way forward,
yeah.
Already we are resolving it within the government, and I don't think it will escalate into a crisis. There is no big problem. Sometimes our personalities differ, and maybe we may fail to understand each other, but to me, it's a small issue which will be resolved, and it does not reflect what is happening in the cabinet. We have confidence in the Prime Minister. Honorable Nek is a senior minister. He's a hard-working minister.
For the later issue, you have spoken like Michiga, speaking the truth and everything.
I am always like
thank
that.
you for that.
I am always like
when
that.
it came to the other side, it is different.
Which one? So that's more issue. It has been amplified by social media, but it's not as big as it is being portrayed. So it will be internal, and already we have already begun to internally manage it. We shall mend the relations between the Prime Minister and Honorable Nek, and I'm sure they will work together smoothly, and things will move. Okay. It's unfortunate. It is regrettable. On behalf of government, I regret and apologize that this has caused excitement, but we shall handle it internally. And
not excitement, worry.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baromusi. Thank you, Dr. Fred Muhumuza. Thank you, Honorable Seungu. Thank you very much, Honorable Mapenduzi, and thanks so much to Council Sarah. I'm finishing with Sarah. There is someone called Jen listening, and Jen Werike, and has said, tell Madame Sarah that I love her brilliance, and she reminds me of firebrands like Honorable Ovonji, Engineer Winnie Byanyima, and Dr. Miriam Matembe, and so on. So that is someone watching. There are so many messages that we got. Our future is very bright on that note. Thank you very much, and I want to thank the team, the production team. Thank you very much, the technical team from here and from the entire team of Behind the Headlines. We want to say thank you to all of you out there who sit and watch this show every Wednesday from 10 to midnight. We appreciate your time, and of course, remember that COVID still exists, and take good care of yourself, take care of your family members, Take care of your neighbors and the people that you meet because COVID still exists. Ensure that you keep the social distance and all the standard operating procedures. Kindly, for your sake, for your life, and for the safety of everybody else. Until next week, God bless you all. Good night. Bye-bye.
Everyone is talking about MTN shares. I am Jenny Kafulua Shares, and I am here to